right. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Law 38, Section 18, and Governor Healy's March 29, 2023 revised order extending remote participation by all members in any meeting of a public body. This meeting of the Great Barrington Finance Committee will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. It's very relevant tonight. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with a right and or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to listen to the meeting may do so in the following manner, see the instructions at the top of the agenda. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. Pursuant to MGL 7C 30A, Section 20F, after notifying the chair of the public body, any person may make a video or audio recording of an open session of a meeting of a public body or may transmit the meeting through any medium. At the beginning of the meeting, the chair shall inform other attendees of any such recordings, and any member of the public wishing to speak at the meeting must receive permission of the chair. So we are recording the meeting. Is there anyone else recording the meeting?
I am doing an audio recording just as a backup.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to call the meeting to order with a roll call vote. Milena cannot make it tonight. Anne?
I am here.
Madonna?
Hi, I'm here.
Rich?
I'm here.
And Phil Orenstein, I am here as well. Any committee member announcements or statements?
None from me.
Okay.
None for me.
Okay, so then we're going to go to the first item on the agenda, and that's the approval of the minutes from our last meeting, which I believe is
June 18th.
June
18th.
Yes, so I thank.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
All roll call vote. Anne?
Approved.
Madonna?
Aye, approved.
Richard?
Approved.
And I'll approve it, so it's unanimous. Okay, all right. Sorry, I'm searching for some things on my crowded desk. Okay, so then we're going to move to the finance director report. And so there's a bunch of things in the agenda. I'm sorry, in the packet. A couple of things. I'll make a couple of brief. Oh, here we go. Brief remarks. So in some of the materials that we have here, this really represents, we're trying to, follow up on our collective agreement, coming out of last year's budget agreement to work with staff and to sort of figure out some ways where we can have a little more sense of how things are progressing over the course of the year to eliminate or sort of to allow us to have potentially be a little less surprised with some of the numbers that we see in the budget book when we receive them in February. So it's really trying to figure out some constructive collaboration with staff where we're not making too much additional work for them. We don't want to ask them to publicly disclose numbers that are not completed and not finalized or that they're not comfortable with disclosing. But at the same time, trying to get a little better sense as to how the year is progressing. One of the things, one of the takeaways, I think we've already done a bit, is to be a little more, try to be a little more focused on the priority planning sessions that the select board has. There was one, I believe it was in April, if I remember right. And we just had the opportunity to tune in on that, which I did, which was helpful. And I would encourage everyone to do that with the one that they have. I believe they have it in December or January. So we're going to go through some. There's a few things in the packet that Allison added, and really that represents just the start of the process, and we're gonna and I'm going to continue to work with staff just to figure out what we can do to just be a little more updated as the year progresses. A bit separate from that, I just wanted to, what I threw in the packet is just a update on our the cannabis tax revenue that the town receives. And Ann's put that on the screen in the packet.
We may as well, since none of us are on the screen.
Right, exactly. Okay. And just one important note is that this is the what I'll call the non-disputed portion of the cannabis tax. This is the sort of regular 3% local option tax that makes its way after, I think, about a 2-year period into our town's free cash and is a part of our budgetary discussions every year. And it really, and we're not including the community impact fee, which is the subject of some dispute. So it's just healthy to know sort of what the trend line is here, and kind of no surprise, that those revenues for the fiscal 24, which just ended in June, are down considerably. So they're down 40% from the prior year. So the best year was fiscal 22, right in the middle of the pandemic, right when when we had a little more of a exclusive offering here in town. But as time has progressed, other states are opening up cannabis retail sales. So it's less of a unique offering that we have. And so that's, in my opinion, that's obviously one of the major reasons it's gone down. So the net takeaway is there'll be less of this money to supplement our other tax revenues. I deferred to the expert on this, Ann, about the timing of this, but the fiscal 23 number of 1,345,000, that was the number that was included in the budget book that we had back in February for fiscal 25. So there's a
Right.
2-year lag in the arrival of that money.
Right.
So if I'm getting it right, Ann, I think that lower number in 24 is going to show up in the budget book, the next budget book we see for fiscal 26.
Sounds right. Yeah. Yeah.
Getting my
Yeah, I
fiscal
mean,
year right.
just looking at this, I mean, it'll be interesting. I mean, it seems to have, at least in fiscal year 24, stabilized around just under 200,000, but it'll be interesting if it goes down even lower. So, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So why don't you unshare that one? Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. All right. Okay,
Okay, so then after that, we just have the budget reports, the more traditional budget reports that these are typically what has been included in the finance committee packets over the years, based on my experience. When Allison was transitioning in, we kind of went away from that a bit. So I think I just wanted to get us back into the rhythm of having these reports in our packet as sort of a normal course. They're not particularly informative, and that they only cover the first month of fiscal 25, and that's okay. But again, we just wanted to make sure that as we get back into the rhythm of seeing these reports. So we have a separate report for the town budget, and then for the wastewater budget.
Allison, Phil, I do have some questions, but Allison, is there anything you wanted to say about it before we go to any specific lines?
Well, actually, Phil and I discussed the other day, really, this report is used as a tool by the department heads, and I send it out on a monthly basis. And that's for them to review their accounts to be sure that things aren't being charged to the wrong place. A new employee isn't set up under the wrong line item. So it's frequent that these will change. These are kind of a fluid document. The only true one is the June, when I've closed the fiscal year. So I just want to put that out there, and also mention that until I close the fiscal year in Munis, the purchase order encumbrances aren't carried forward. So the report does look a little wonky. I'm sure you see in the select board section, there's negative encumbrances. That's why.
Oh, I see. Interesting.
Okay, so, you know, if there's $5,000 in holdover encumbrances from FY 24, and now we're in FY 25 July, and we receive that bill, we pay the bill, it'll say minus 5,000 for the encumbrance.
Okay, that's helpful.
But you won't see it in the revised budget section column until I close it the fiscal year.
I see. Okay.
And as Allison says, as a process point, I made it clear to her that we're not expecting her to understand and be knowledgeable about every number on this report. And that if we had any specific questions that she could not answer off the top, off the tip of her tongue, then it would be perfectly normal for her to give her some time to kind of research that and come back to us. So that's sort of just a kind of an important process point.
Right. And going forward, if you would all like to email me any questions, I can certainly try to get those answers prior to meetings. Because I unfortunately, a lot of the answers that the questions you're going to ask me are probably other departments that I'll have to discuss with the department heads of what is happening in their department. So unless you're asking me about my line items, it's going to be pretty difficult for me to answer for another department head. But I'm happy to do that if you'd like to send me an email ahead of time so I can get information for you.
Okay. I guess I'll ask just a general question. Some of them some budget lines have encumbrances that are more than the budgeted amount.
Mm-hmm.
So are they now assuming that what was budgeted will not meet the demands of the year?
Nope, that's because the fiscal year hasn't closed.
Okay, so that has
Can I direct you to the legal fee? line?
That's one of them. Yep, yep.
Oh, great. Okay, so you'll notice that the appropriation is $85,000. That's
Yeah.
what was approved. And
Which department are you in? I'm sorry, I have.
select board,
Select
right at the
board.
very front, very
Okay.
first page.
Yep.
So the appropriation is 85,000. We've spent 7,175.49. Of that 7,175.49, we have 7,275 encumbered that are carry forward from last year. So it looks like maybe that bill came in, they held over 7,275, but it came in at 7,175.49. Pretty close. But if you look at the available balance, it says $85,099.51. So it appears as though we have more than what was appropriated. And that's the problem. What will happen is in the column for revised budget, you will see that it won't be 85,000, it'll be 85,000 plus the 7,275 encumbrance holdover.
I guess I was thinking of something different, like under the DPU highway. So here I'll go down. Where was it? And here where it's
Page.
what page? It's on page 8.
Thank you.
And so see, trash removal, the encumbrances are 5,808 when the budget is 3,500. And so I guess, so we're already at 165% of the budget, 166, I guess. So is this department, and Allison, you may not be able to answer it. And again, in the future, I'll email you in advance because I did look at this in advance. I'm not sure so that must mean that at this point, the person managing this budget doesn't think that what we budgeted will suffice for the year because this is all encumbrance.
No, I don't think that's the issue. I think that, and this is completely a guess here, but I kind of have a feeling that that department is in the process of trying to split expenditures correctly between the public building section and the DPW highway.
Okay.
So that could be a piece of it. And again, as I said, that this is a working document. So when I'm sending these out to the department heads, that's when the department head should look at their accounts and say, hey, why is that way? Maybe I over encumbered, or maybe I paid something there that I should have paid from somewhere else.
Okay, all right, thank you. I appreciate that.
Sure,
And again,
No
yeah,
problem.
in the future, now that I know, I will definitely email my questions in advance.
absolutely.
And
I
when
have a question. I have my hand up for for some time. Is that the best way for us to note that?
Yeah,
we
go ahead,
have a
Richard.
question?
Go ahead, Richard. Yeah.
Okay, so there are several places, Allison, thank you for this. It's very helpful.
You're
But there are
welcome.
several places on here, contracted services. For instance, on page 2 under technology, on page 2 under assessors, where it's almost 100% used.
So I can tell you specifically the IT one, contracted services, is because we have an annual contract. So that's why it's completely encumbered right at the beginning of the year. And it's
That's what I
a
was,
blanket purchase order that gets paid on a monthly basis.
that's what I was wondering in general.
Mhm.
Or say something under in page 3, at the top of the page, office equipment. I assume that travel training, that's just something that happens at the beginning of the year, and so that's already paid. Is office equipment like a leasing arrangement, or
Most likely that is what it is. Yep.
that seems to be, those were some of the questions that I had continually through the document. This so in brief, this is not just reflecting the first month of like July of this year, but it also has some encumbrances from the previous fiscal year that still haven't been balanced into the equation. Is that what I
Correct.
understood you saying?
Yes,
Okay.
I think that what you will find helpful, I guess, until I close the fiscal year and all the entries are made, is the column for the year to date expended. That's 100% accurate. The original appropriation is 100% accurate. The encumbrances again are going to be a little wonky, and the revised budget does not have that in. But if you want to look at it like how much have we spent so far from that line item, that would probably be the easiest way for you to do it.
So explain it one more time. The original appropriation is correct.
Yep, the original appropriation is what was voted,
Okay.
and the year to date expended is the actual expenditures for the entire month of July. So that, unless something was charged to the wrong line, will not change. If it is charged to the wrong line, then the department head would issue a correction with me, and I would make the change for them.
Okay, that's
I
helpful because I
yeah,
was
I
looking a
caution you-
lot at,
I caution you to look at the encumbrances and the available budget lines and the percentage, because it's going to be a little wonky until it is the fiscal year is closed out
okay,
in Bemis.
I hadn't spent a lot of time on year-to-date expended. I was looking at percent
Mm-hmm.
used. So year-to-date expended would be a clearer picture probably.
I think that would be more helpful to you until
Okay.
it closes. Mhm.
Thank you very much. And when
Oh,
do you
you're welcome.
anticipate closing?
Well, I'm crossing my fingers and hoping for sometime in October, but I'm going to say potentially November, because we will have a borrowing coming up as well in November. So I might, between the tax rate setting and the borrowing, I might get a little traffic going on. So that's my intention, that's what I prefer to do. That's what I preferred in my prior community is October. But I'm going to give myself a little bit of extra time on this one, just because I have multiple things coming in at the very same time.
Thank you.
But I'll keep you updated.
Great.
Okay, so, I think, Allison, again, big picture, this is the document that was used prior to your arrival, to basically provide updates to this committee. So that's why I wanted to get back to it. And, I'm always eager to consider other ways to do it or other ways to supplement this information, so we'll just sort of continue to work with you on that.
Okay.
And now I'm flipping ahead to,
Bill, Madonna has her hand up.
I just wanted
I
to
didn't,
thank,
I've got something else open. I didn't see that. Go ahead, Madonna.
I just wanted to thank Allison. I like your approach. I like your, how you go about explaining things. Rich, I had a lot of the same things going, huh, what, huh? And Allison, you did a great job, so thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Agreed. Right, so I'm going ahead to page 19 of the packet where it says authorized unissued debt. Now, this page comes out of a discussion I had with Allison, just trying to think of ways we could sort of be more in touch with the budget process during the course of the year, again, without sort of making a huge amount of work for her and without putting out something that is not a finished product. So this is one of the ideas that we had, and we're going to continue to sort of try to see if there's other things we can add to it. But there's nothing new in here. What this is the again, we had all those discussions during the budget process about how borrowings increased based primarily on how Joe Aberdale did a great job of actually executing and completing projects that were approved over the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years.
Indeed.
Or previously approved. So that's sort of one of the lessons learned in that process. So what this is the master running list of authorized debt issuances that have yet to be issued. And this is something that we've seen on an annual basis, and this is a bit of an interim version of that. So if you look in the right-hand column, you see there's that bold number, 10,652,000. That is essentially the number that was in our last budget binder as approved but unissued debt. And then below that are the additional issuances that were authorized in our budget process back in February, which gets us to a new master number. If Ann will scroll down, you get that $15.4 million number. So go back up, Ann, I'm sorry.
Okay.
So again, just as an example, as the things we'll sort of we'll attempt to track as the year progresses. To pull unfortunately an important topic, we'll look at the line item. It's like about 6 from the top, Division Street Bridge repairs. I'm sorry. So you'll see that 4 million was approved rather.
Mhm.
Roughly 2.3 million was actually borrowed. And then there's another 1.6 million of authorized but unissued debt potentially relating to the Division Street Bridge, which may or may not be used depending on how much the state pays for the new bridge. And so that's just one example of these line items. So we're gonna try to be mindful of this and track this over time as part of our budgetary discussion.
Can I raise my hand? I can't raise my hand while.
Please, and I'm sorry, I can't see your
I
hand.
know, and I
Yeah,
can't screen share and
yeah.
raise my
Go
hand
ahead,
at the same time.
Yeah.
Can I just ask, the sewer system improvements, is that wastewater borrowing?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what I thought. And that's the same for the pump station upgrades down here, correct?
correct.
Because I was looking at this and thinking, so in terms of, but borrowing that was not wastewater, we were at about 3.2 million approved, and that would balance out with the 1,500 here, so,
Yeah.
okay.
Mhm.
And Allison, can I just ask a question? So
Sure.
all of these, do we have any sort of timeline as to when that borrowing might occur, or how do we sort of manage to know or have some sort of idea of how much borrowing will occur in a given fiscal year? Or
Okay, so I just would like to point out that this list is down considerably from where it was. We tried to use up a lot of unspent bond proceeds that were for like projects, rather than use these various lines to have to borrow. So we're hoping to try to have some savings. I did rescind a lot. I'm still anticipating that if, for example, there's a fire truck and it's $1 million authorization, we purchase it for 900,000. We borrow 900,000, but we rescind the 100,000. And then that makes the authorized unissued zero at that point. So I think a lot of cleanup work has been done. We've used a lot of things a lot of unspent bond proceeds that we could use. We're still working on it. It's kind of a work in process, and we've come a long way, but we're still working on it. I hope to have this halved by next year, because it hurts me to see such old fiscal year items out here.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
and this is one place where I really just want to thank you, because this is the first time at least that I've seen it like this, and this is really helpful to have. So, this is great. And I know, Phil, you've been working or asking for it, so thank you both on it. But Allison, thank you for doing all the work. Okay, but I know, Rich, I know you have and Madonna also, but can I ask one other just quick question while I'm here? Under the project description, some are indicated as exempt. What are they exempt from?
Proposition 2.5.
Got it. Okay, thank you. I'm done.
Great question, though.
I think Richard had his hand up first, unless Madonna, I'm getting it
Well,
wrong.
No, Rich
I
did.
think because I spoke so much last time, let Madonna go first.
Okay. Oh, God, that's an opening. No, I just wanted to say that driving around Great Barrington, Joe Aberdale is making things visibly happen. And, I've been, careful about, do you need it? Do you want it? But he's getting things done and making Great Barrington so much better. The roads, I'm just very impressed, and I just wanted to point that out.
That's a very good point. And let me just squeeze in one there. What I've really tried to do in my comments on these difficult topics is make it clear that we are in no way criticizing town staff for completing capital projects that were approved in prior budget sessions.
Agreed.
Yeah,
I
so
just,
rather
think
we're
yeah.
saying that that's great that they did that work, and we appreciate it. I think
Absolutely.
where I think we've gotten where I think there's some room for improvement is just sort of kind of a collective awareness about how all that work cycles through into our actual borrowings and into our actual interest expense, which is
Exactly. Thank you, Phil.
all right. So it's a lot of numbers easily confused, but I think we're getting there. All right, Richard, go ahead.
Thank you, Allison. This is an excellent document. I can look at this a lot. I've tried to break it down in my mind in various ways, and it's extremely helpful. Maybe you can teach me a little bit here. Perhaps I'm correct. Let me tell you what I think I'm seeing. On each of these line items, when it says bonded, that's the amount of money we have borrowed towards this line item.
Correct.
Now, what is the total bond premiums applied?
So oftentimes when we go out for a borrowing, and the banks bid on our borrowing, some of the bids have a bond premium attached. So often what we'll do with those bond premiums, instead of taking the bond premium and setting that money aside, we apply it to the borrowing. So for example, instead of borrowing $50,000 for a pickup truck, if we have $50,000 worth of bond premiums for general fund items, then we apply the 50,000, don't borrow anything. So there's no borrowing on it. It's the 50,000 goes straight to that.
And I'm still having a little bit of a difficulty wrapping my mind around what a bond premium is.
Do you want to, I'm going to let Allison go for that. Or you could also, if you want to sort of come back to us on that, that's okay too.
Yeah,
It-
I could give you a more detailed, probably.
But just a basic
Yeah.
idea would be helpful for me.
Yeah, definitely. But truly that's kind of a general statement, because that's how
So
we determine which is which is the best bid, is between the interest rate and or the bond premiums that they will allow us. So essentially a bank gives us money to borrow money.
Okay, that's very helpful. Thank you.
Sure.
So the
Absolutely.
premium is coming from the lender, and
Correct.
they're giving us money in order to get our business in
Yep.
borrowing.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's very helpful. So that's kind of free money,
Yep.
right?
I wouldn't look at it that way, Richard. It's really, it's ultimately, it's sort of, it's the, it all gets sort of in the it comes out in the wash as that sort of the effective interest rate on that borrowing.
Okay.
So it's not free. It's all part of the interest rate calculation.
That is true. Nothing is free, is it?
Yeah.
No, I understand that, but you may have a choice between two lenders, and one of them is offering a certain interest rate with a bond premium, which in toto is more attractive to us than the other lender.
Correct.
Okay. And pay downs, are those from the
So
budget itself?
no, what a pay down is when we do a temporary short-term borrowing, otherwise known as a bond anticipation note. We are allowed, I believe, off the cuff, I want to say after 5 years, we might have to make payments. I believe it has to do with the life of the item, of the project. But after, what happens is if you have a temporary short-term borrowing and then you roll it, for example, take out another short-term borrowing and then you roll it, it's to try to minimize taking out short-term debt and encourage long-term borrowings. So what happens is if
That's
somebody
good enough.
That's
That's
good
good
enough.
enough. Yeah. No need for more detail. I might drop by your desk and ask for
Oh,
maybe a
please
little
do.
bit more. That would be fine.
Absolutely.
There is another line here that I don't understand. Total transferred amount. In this particular year in 2021, for wastewater equipment, there is this line item of 300,000, I guess, added to the authorization.
Yes, you may recall last year we repurposed one of our capital items that was, I believe, Maple Street intersection, if I'm not mistaken. We repurposed 300,000 of it. So essentially that created a new project line. So there is no original authorization. There's just a transfer in amount.
So it's a transfer from a previously authorized project, which is no
Correct.
longer needed.
Correct.
Right?
I believe off the top of my head, it was $400,000 authorization for Maple Street. And because it was so specific and we couldn't use those funds and we had borrowed the 100,000 that was associated with that, we took the 300,000 and repurposed it to just be wastewater equipment improvements, repairs, to kind of open it up for a little bit more, a little bit to encompass more, I guess.
I thought that's what it was, but your explanation is perfectly sufficient for me to understand better. So this is a terrific document, even better. The longer I look at it, I understand more and more. I guess I think we're all here in agreement that great work is being done. These expenditures were already authorized for borrowing, but we're looking at how much debt is accruing as the year progresses in anticipation of the budget for 26. Am I correct on that statement, everyone?
Yes, absolutely.
So, to Phil's point, we know that Aberdale is doing all he can to prioritize. But how soon would we know that something has been prioritized and is now encumbered?
Well, let me chime in on that because we did, Allison and I discussed this. Are you okay if I call you Ally, by the way? Allison?
Please, I would love for you to call me Allie.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay. I think we discussed that. So I mean, the answer there is that that's a very much of a collaboration within town hall. And a lot of that is Allison only knows what she is told at some point by Joe and his staff and other department heads about when they're actually going to be able to do projects and they need the money and then we need to borrow the money. So we can't, it really doesn't work. It's not practical to sort of expect her to give us that insight without, having a whole array of conversations within town hall. And those conversations are ongoing. And I'm not, I'm not sure, I'm sort of debating in my mind, whether or not we really want to sort of get involved with that process, whether or not we should be doing that, and whether or not that's just sort of adding an administrative or communications burden on town staff. But so we want to sort of figure out a way to get a little more insight into that process. So Allison and I agreed to have a subsequent conversation on that just to figure out what would make sense. We would probably have that. We're working to have that with Mark joining in as well. So I would view that our sort of monitoring of that process over the course of the year definitely represents a change in practice, and it's a work in process with Allison and Mark.
Indeed. May I follow up?
Please.
So this excellent document, is it updated each time there are future bond purchases?
Yes, actually, this is a small version of a spreadsheet that I do keep that is probably 2 or 3 screens wide. So with each borrowing, there's a column, and that's what that total borrowed is a sum of all the borrowings, because they may be at different times.
Yeah.
But
Right.
we will be doing a bond in November, as we anticipated at budget time. So we
Right.
will be doing a bond, and once that bond goes out to bid and we accept the bid, the bond paperwork then has to be approved by the select board. So I think it would be probably helpful if you plan to attend that, so you can see what the borrowing is, what the planned, the payback, the debt schedule is for it, what we got for an interest rate. You'll be able to hear all that in that meeting.
Yeah.
Great.
That's
then-
that's an important meeting, and I'm going to say that I've observed those meetings in the past. It's a little no criticism of anyone intended, but it's a little surprising that the finance committee has no role in that process. But that is what it is. But those meetings do take place, and that's how the process works.
But my further question is, after that meeting takes place and other bonds are obtained,
Mhm.
is this document we're looking at, is this updated every
Yep.
month when we have
Yes.
our meeting? So
It
we
wouldn't be
will,
every month. It would only be when we actually do a borrowing. So it
Great.
probably would be
Great.
updated in November after we
Great.
do that bond, and I can certainly send it out after it's been updated, after the bond has closed.
great, that's excellent. That's
And-
way more than we've had in the past. And I think that will give us a heads up each time something comes up.
Yeah, and actually, since we're talking about it, would you like me to leave unhidden the bond section, the bond column for November, so you can see how much for each of these items was bonded and the bond, any bond premiums applied? Or do you just want me to still leave the totals? I just didn't know if you wanted to see a drilled down version of it. Or
For
both.
me, the totals are enough, but what do you think, Phil?
Yeah, I think the totals are enough. I mean, the
Okay.
line item detail is, I mean, if they're buying through, correct me if I'm wrong, Ally, but if you're buying, two weed whackers, then you'll have the two weed whackers listed separately. Is that about right?
Correct.
Okay, so I don't know if we really, that's probably more than we need.
Okay.
I think so. Yeah. More
But know
than
that
we
it's
need.
available.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
It is tracked in very granular detail for a handful of reasons.
Yeah.
So, all right, well, good. So I think this has been a hit, Ally. I think,
Oh, Good.
A hit.
yeah, so this is an exciting
It was-
group. We like these things.
It was a good collaboration, Phil.
I had to encourage her that we wouldn't bite if she put this out, but all right. So the next page of excitement is again a little bit of a similar report about actual debt service, which is payment of principal and interest on our debt, which again was another topic of extreme interest in the last budget process. And so this is just kind of, I'll look at it as a bit of an interim report. So if I look at the top right, just to try to frame it quickly, if we look at the top right-hand corner, that was the fiscal 25 budget appropriation. So that 2.1 million number was the long-term principal payments that was in the budget binder on the debt service page, which said this is the budgeted amount to repay debt during the course of the year.
Correct.
And then you could see how that is actually sort of unfolding as the year progresses. We're making these payments. I don't know exactly the day, doesn't really matter, but you paying back the bonds issued in 2021 and 2017 and all that. And that's sort of how that number that we approved is utilized over the course of the year.
Yes.
Great.
And then it's sort of similar with the interest payments on the left-hand side of the page.
Yeah, actually, it's kind of cut right down the middle. So the left-hand section is FY24, the right-hand section is FY25.
Right.
Just so you can basically see for the FY24 where everything went and what savings we might have incurred.
And that would,
And
can I just ask Ellie, so this is like a savings here, down here, the 335.94, 945?
yes, so what basically that would be like a departmental turnback and will go directly to free cash. Don't pass go.
And then can I just ask, so this one I had more trouble reading, but so it's, we appropriated 2.1 million.
Mhm.
So far we have.
Correct. Actual payments have been 390 and
Okay.
upcoming are those rest of those. Correct.
Got it.
Yes,
Okay.
we pay them on a quarterly basis.
Yeah, and this is then another appropriation that we
And
made.
that is the interest.
Oh,
So
that's the
that section is the interest. So you see the 24 on the left and the
Oh, I see.
25 on the
Yeah.
right.
Got
Mhm.
it. Okay, all right.
I
this
was
is-
trying to do a one-page picture for you
No,
to
no,
try to.
No,
love
no, you've
one-page.
explained it well. Thanks.
I love
Sure.
one-page, yeah. Okay. Oh, this is also really, really helpful.
Yeah, so the title that's in the left-hand column is also the title for the right-hand column. That's
Right.
the only thing, yeah. I
Yes.
see now what you're saying. It's very clear.
Okay.
All right.
So again, this is just more of kind of letting us into the workroom a bit just to see what's going on, but this is all consistent with what was in the budget binder. From the last budget period. So again, very helpful, Ally, appreciated, and you and I will hopefully have another little chat with Mark just to see if there's any way that's works for everyone to try to get a little more information out there over the course of the year.
Absolutely.
Without again, we don't want to create new work responsibilities for you. No, that's not the intent.
Mhm.
Okay, great. And then just moving on, last item is the discussion of the proposed master plan update. And I included this letter that we received from Brandy Nelson a couple of weeks ago. It's in the packet. And it's I guess we're basically beginning a relatively long project of considering to update our town master plan. Now, one important takeaway for me is that it made me look at the town master plan, which is a very large document put together in 2013, a huge undertaking. Many people worked very hard on it. It's a terrific document. It covers a wide array of important issues for the town, and in terms of sort of what are our big issues, what do we look like, what are our concerns, what do we need to spend money on, what do we need to focus on. Just it's a terrific document, and again, I salute the many people who worked on it back back over a couple of years during 2013. So we're beginning to start the process of taking a look to see if an update makes sense, and when Brandy wants some feedback on that. I did take a look, and my main feedback, real quick, is I'm not sure this committee has too much to provide her at this point, in that we're just focused on what everything costs, as opposed to what to spend the money on and why we should spend money here as opposed to there, and should we spend money on parks, should we spend money on roads, should we spend money on housing. That's my sense is it's left to all the various other committees in town, and that our role sort of comes in on the back end when we try to figure out what we can pay for with respect to our priorities. So that was my take on it. And so I'll throw that open for any comments.
Might I say something?
Please.
I started to read volume 1 of the master plan. I've assisted in putting documents similar to this, not a master plan for a town, but I know that a lot of the document is, by its nature, saying what we hope to see, what we hope to do, where we hope to put our views. But there are a lot of wonderful maps and addendums. It's a really great document. The only thing that threw me off was the 2 links are to the same document.
Right.
So we only have volume 1. So I was going to ask, is volume 2 embedded somewhere in
Yeah, you just need to go to the
town of Great Barrington?
well, it's on the planning board page of the town website.
Okay, easy enough.
Yeah, and on that sort of grid on the left, you'll see it's there very easily.
Okay, great. No problem.
But that is a typo, and
Is it
I
something?
consciously decided I didn't want to correct Brandy on this point.
No. Oh, since we can find the document easily enough.
Yeah, no, it's right on the web page for the planning
Right.
board.
I think it is something that would be helpful for us to review, so that we have a general idea of people's thinking of what the master plan currently is, as these discussions are happening over the next probably couple of years to revise it. So good that she's sending this out and getting people to be aware of it.
I mean, it certainly is referenced a lot in conversations, particularly from the planning board, as well as Chris Rembold's work. That a lot of what is done is an attempt to, address issues or weaknesses or shortfalls that have been addressed in the master plan, and to try to address those points. So I think it represents, a pretty thoughtful and careful approach.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the data in there is just obviously, is terrific and it's just old. So
Mhm.
yeah, my sense is it would be useful just to, at the very least, update a lot of that information.
Yep.
But it's a huge undertaking, so it will take time.
Mm.
All right. So I'm gonna probably just mention the brandy that we discussed it, we looked at it, and we think that we're not probably gonna have much feedback for them at this point, other than that it's a terrific document. All right,
Yeah.
That sounds good to me.
okay. All right, so that includes the agenda. I'm gonna say, do we have any citizens who'd like to say something?
We do have one, James. You should be allowed to speak at this point.
Yes, good evening, board. My name is James Garzone, 84 North Plain Road. Let me start off by agreeing with everyone that Joe Aberdell has done an amazing job, and it's a testament to what person can lead a team, because the team he had was the old team, but he came on and has done exceptional for the entire town. So great job for Joe. I tell him that all the time when I see him. I have a couple of comments. One, for the budget, when it gets disseminated, I see that each head department signs off in the bottom. I have asked, and maybe this is just me, but can we have the name of the department head? Because signatures, I can't tell who it is. And over time, we might not know who that person was 5, 10 years ago. So it would help. It would be, Chris Rembold signing, and underneath would say Chris Rembold. That's just one comment. Two, I hope and I implore that the finance committee will take, and you have, so I don't want to say you haven't, but even a closer look at our finances. We are in trouble. We're in trouble because our infrastructure is falling apart, as we know. We're in trouble because we have brown water in Housatonic, and who knows what's going to happen with the Housatonic Waterworks, and that's all been executive committee for about a year and a half. We are in trouble because we have a new school that's going to be voted on probably next year. It's going to be over $100 million. And who knows if it's going to be approved or not. The last 2 times it hasn't been approved when it was 50 million. I don't see how it's going to be approved if it's 100 million. But if it is, on top of the school tax, on top of the infrastructure that we need, on top of the brown water, on top of everything else that we have going on, we are pricing out the people that we need desperately in our community, the people who've lived here for many years. We have the senior citizens, we have the people who work in our restaurants and our stores. I find, and I know everybody's trying to do their best. I know the select board is doing their best. I know the finance committee. And thank you, Ally, for what you've done in the past year and a half that you've been in your position, like everyone just reiterated. But this is a crisis, and my taxes are extremely high. And thankfully, I'm not in a position where other people are. They're pinching pennies. They're making decisions between medication versus their lights, their food. I see it. I speak to people. You do as well. You're part of the community. You know it as well as I do. So I don't know what's going to happen to us in 2, 3, 5 years if we continue in this path of just our infrastructure is falling apart, new schools, brown water. We just can't afford it. We're not building. We're not going to have a plethora of land that we can just build new apartments and houses and get this revenue stream. It's not going to happen. And I've asked several times about the Sears School, where the Mahitas have promised since 2016 to build something. We gave them a huge tax break, and they still haven't done anything. And the only reason they tore down that gymnasium is so they can pretend they're doing something and continue their permit, which we know is just a farce. They've helped Lennox with this new building construction. It was in the newspaper about a month ago, so it's great for them, right? But where are we at Great Barrington? So the finance committee, you're doing great, and I know you're pushing back, but something's got to give. So I'm on my soapbox. I apologize. Have a great evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, James. I will say that we are very much aware of those issues. But particular, the ongoing matter with the Houstonic water. Just to repeat what we mentioned in the past is that that matter is largely being addressed in executive session by the select board, which is appropriate given the litigation. So there are many things that we don't know about that process on the finance committee, and we don't even know what we don't know. Okay. So I've taken the approach that we shouldn't be commenting on things that we're very much uninformed on, because we don't want to basically throw a wrench into the works as to what the select board and the town manager are trying to do, as well as our legal counsel. So my view is we need to be basically, wait that out to see when we get to the point where there's a strategy and with financial implications that we can properly analyze and make a recommendation on. So, and just one last point I'll make, James, I respect your comments. The Searle School is a private real estate project at the end of the day. So it's really the town has no ability to compel them to, start building that process. And I don't, obviously I'm not aware of the full details of the project, but the tax incentives I'll speculate relate to what will be realized by them when they start working on the project. And if they don't work on the project, then many of those tax incentives would not be realized for them. So on that note, which is speculation, I'll conclude my comment there. But anyone else?
Yeah, Phil, if I can just jump in, and James, I do appreciate your comments as well. And a lot of the concerns you've expressed about those who are really struggling to make it financially make it here, I share your concerns. I do think, and Phil, and the rest of the committee, we talked about this after the budget season last year, and that if there are ways that we can sort of know what's coming, and Allison, I know that that's not always easy. I mean, it's a process, but to know sort of what might be the big ticket items that are coming down the pike in the coming year, or what are the departmental budgets that look like they're going to be needing, big increases, or even places where we can have some savings, just because when, last year we just sort of had the month of February to just sort of vet everything. And, we sort of asked Mark to go back and make these cuts. And then in the end, those cuts seemed really difficult and painful. And so our cuts, in the end, the cuts we made were not huge, which again, I think in terms of keeping services in the town, doing what needs to be done, was appropriate. But just, again, maybe just any information that we can get sooner rather than at the end would be helpful. So. And we did write that up, Phil, in terms of the goals for the coming year.
Right. So big picture, we have a lot of potential projects that will require significant funding. We probably cannot fund them all. We need to basically be able to have price tags on all of them and be able to make some prioritization decisions. So that's sort of the way I'm looking at it. Anyone else?
Can I just mention that, it's hard on a finance committee to not look like the bad guys. And I don't think we're ever trying to do that. And I also thank James for being a citizen who speaks up and recognizes what we've been all talking about in the finance committee about the impending huge amounts of money, or schools and water. I mean, it's so difficult, and we do need citizens that can help us brainstorm in any way they can, and let people know about that. So yeah, I just wanted to say, I don't want to be a bad guy, but it's hard when you're on a finance committee and you're going, wait, do we really need that? Which was a lot of my saying, do we need it or want it? And, tough choices are there. So I just wanted to put that out.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Thank you. Any media questions out there?
Nope.
Now, seeing none, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I
Oh,
make a,
actually, I'm sorry, last comment, next meeting.
oh yeah, next meeting.
What I'll say is we have one on the calendar for next month. What I'd like to do is to continue the approach we've had whereby we basically wait and see to see if there are matters that we need to meet on. And then sort of midway through the month, I'll come out to the group and say either we can cancel a meeting or we do in fact need to meet, and then we'll go ahead. So that's the approach I'm taking. Hopefully that works, and I'll do my best to give everyone
Yeah.
as much of an
That makes
advance notice
sense.
as possible. Yeah.
That makes sense to me.
Okay, great.
I related to that, when is the tax rate setting meeting? Does anyone remember? Steve or Allison, do you remember when that will be?
I don't know off the top of my head. I know it is in the month of November.
It's in November, okay. Because, yeah, this is another place where the finance committee doesn't have any, vote or say, but I do think it's a select board meeting that'd be good for finance, for us to attend. So that we're aware of what the tax rate policy is going to be.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Oh, I'll make the motion to adjourn.
All right. I think I'll assume unanimous approval, and everyone should have a good.
Yep, second
Everyone-
unanimous, yep.
Right. So
Every-
I'm sure you
everyone-
guys all enjoyed seeing me.
Yes, exactly.
We
And I got a lot of
did. You
focus.
look
Sorry about
great.
that.
You look great.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah, very
I
neat.
was-
Yeah, you have that very neat and tidy looking chimney behind you. It looks very
Oh,
good.
yeah, right. I think I was the best looking on the committee tonight.
Well, unless you saw my, my eyelash extensions, but that's all
okay.
right. That's okay.
Okay.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone. Have a good
All
evening.
right, have a good night.
night.
Good night.